Love, blessings, peace, and prosperity, divine, beautiful soul. You're tuned into the Cafecito and Tarot Podcast. It's me, Nicole P, your spiritual barista, serving up wisdom, guidance, and inspiration from the cards. My love, I'm coming to you from a sunny, snowy, freezing Sunday morning here in the MDW, the Midwest, that is. And this is one of the last episodes that I'll be publishing for 2025. Now, if you've been hanging out with me for some time, I know I've been very sporadic here in the last couple of years because life has been lifing. And if you may recall, I went through some really intense times with my mom almost passing, and we got displaced twice in 2024. Spirit caught us, and without even knowing, we moved to the Midwest, and it just back to the Midwest, I should say, after being in the PNW for 25 years. And it's just been really super intense. And my mom's also, had a stroke and went into, it was a TI, the mini stroke, watershed stroke. And now some dialysis. So it's been really intense. And here we are. And we're still standing. We're still standing. And so I haven't really had the energy to be on consistently, even though I've wanted to. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And I went to work in a very corporate sort of type of setting. I've never had that before. So that's another trip of itself. But it is what it is. I'm able to now adjust, and I'm looking forward to what the future holds. I have a plan for Cafecito and Tarot, the podcast. I will be sharing the changes with you either later in this episode, or maybe I'll do a mini episode just so you are aware. But I don't want to talk about that now. I want to talk about the tarot for 2025 and share with you one of the ways in which I reflect and in over some cafecito and some cards. So 2025, man, this was a year of the Hermit. And coming to 2026, we are going to be in a Wheel of Fortune. It's a 10 year, so Wheel of Fortune, and also the Magician. Pretty interesting energy, definitely, for 2026, but that's for another episode, right? I think we have a tendency, which rightfully so, is to jump ahead to the what's next, right? What's next? Give me what's next. I'm done with this and I want to keep on moving on, and rightfully so. It's like a lot of times when we're towards the end of a cycle, we're done, right? And sometimes it's in those moments, when we feel like we're so done and can't go on anymore, that there's gold, right? There's gold indeed. Let me get a sip of my cafecito. Hold on one second. And so I want to invite you to welcome and be excited for possibilities and the beginning of a new cycle. I also want to invite you to sit with what is still remaining. Now, we're always in beginnings and endings, right? The Gregorian calendar cycle may not be one that honors the natural cycle of life or zodiacal cycle of life, and it may be one that you may not choose to have be a measure of time or something that you follow, strictly, right? Or that you measure events or experiences or growth in your life, but we can't deny that it is one measure of time. And I'm down for any type of way that I can have a measure of a cycle. And I always feel like we're in I feel like there's these cookie cutters, right, that you can buy, right? And I bought my mom a set, and so it has a big cookie cutter, and in between the big one, there's a smaller size. So they're like 6 or 5 different sizes, and you have a little small one, right? So it's almost like I feel like this. I don't know if I made sense. There are also those dolls, those wooden dolls, where it's a big one, and you open it, and it's a smaller doll, and then you open the smaller doll, and the doll is even smaller, right? That's what this reminds me of. It's like, for myself, there's the big context of cycles, which is my birth year. And that's like the overarching measure of life and existence and how I interpret things and understand things and how I put things in order and make sense of life, right? And then there's the zodiacal cycles, the natural cycles of the solstice and the equinox. Then there's moon cycles, the new moon and the full moon and the cycles in between. But I usually follow the new moon and the full moon as the markers. And then within that, the cycle of the calendar year. So I'm down for having a multitude of ways that I can understand life and reflect and make sense of things. And the calendar year is one of them. It may not be the main, the main squeeze, so to speak, but it is one that I think can be useful. And so with this calendar year, and so what happens is, I think sometimes what happens is that we're so excited for the new, right? We don't sit with like some of the old, right? And the other thing is that too, with this whole Gregorian calendar, I think there's so much emphasis put on the New Year's resolutions. And I used to work in the fitness industry, so that's a whole nother thing. There's like a lot of like this big push and like new year, new you, and you have to go hard right at the beginning of the new calendar year. And for those of us here in the northern hemisphere, that's in the like that's in winter, right? When our bodies are naturally tuned to the cycles of nature, right? That's just the way our bodies are attuned to. There's still ways that we can reflect and we can be in relationship with the new cycle. So, um, so the Hermit year. So let me get back to, I kind of went off on a tangent, maybe not, I don't know. But the Hermit. So this was 2025, the Hermit. And, I think that as we move into that 2026, right, there's going to be elements of the Hermit that's still going to be lingering, right? It's not just one and done, like bada bing, bada boom. The same thing with the full moon. It's just because grandmother moon reaches her full illumination, it's not the full release. The release actually happens after the full lunation. And so I want to remind you of that too, just to have some patience and grace, and you can be excited about new cycles, but then also realizing too that there's remnants, right? That there's lingering from the previous cycles that still bleed into, right? The new cycle. So we're in the year of 9, the year of the Hermit. And the beautiful thing about the Hermit is that energy allows us the space to reflect, to go within, to tap out for some time, right? To learn, to reflect, to integrate, to metabolize our experiences and our knowledge, wisdom. And the thing about the Hermit is on the end of the Hermit cycle is tapping back in. Right? We tap out to tap back in. And when we look at the image that the glorious, magical maven Pamela Coleman Smith, may she rest in power, peace, and pleasure. The Hermit appears to be on top of a mountain, so to speak. I mean, that's what we're assuming. But really, if you live anywhere where there's snow and you look at the image, they could actually just be walking out in their house. They could be on flat terrain. Regardless of if they're on top of a mountain or on flat terrain, they are holding their light, their lantern, and they have their staff or their wand, and they are lighting the way. So the Hermit reminds us that we are wise, that we are teacher as well as student, and that it's important to share our knowledge, share our experiences, share our stories with those who we feel called to, right? It's a way the Hermit is also the invitation of safe refuge. The Hermit lights the way for others to see their path. The Hermit also comes out to say, please, I have space here. Come sit with me. Come share a meal with me. Come share some cafecito with me. And now that can be actually literal or figuratively speaking. The hermit reminds us that, like trees, we're all connected, and that it is through the sharing of stories of what we learn is how we grow. And if you've been in a time where you've had to have some sacred space to yourself, don't forget to come back out. Don't forget to come back into community, into spaces. What are some of the teachings and the wisdom that you feel compelled to share from this past calendar cycle? Or maybe it's a cycle of many, many moons and it's come to a head in the Hermit year. Now, I know that there are some teachings and some wisdom that are not meant to be shared with all, and I get that. We're always using our sacred discernment as far as what teachings, what wisdom can be shared and with whom. The Hermit is a reminder of your brilliance. The Hermit reminds you that you are intelligent, that you come from a lineage of technologies, of wisdom. And there's a way of also shining light of the past from the Hermit, where you realize you shine light on the past and you look back and you say, wow, look at all that I have lived through. And you stand there in awe of who you are and who you are becoming. There's also a peace to the Hermit of, okay, this is where I am now. And this is what I've learned. This is how I have grown. And this is what I can see for my present and for my future. One of the ways that I also reflect towards the end of a calendar year is I take out the cards for that number. Now, let me explain it to you. It sounds a little bit better this other way of explaining to what I just said. So the Hermit is a 9 year, and I take out the nines. So I take out the 9 of each element in my tarot deck. So, for example, I have the Hermit out, and I have the 9 of Swords. I have the 9 of Cups, the 9 of Pentacles, and I have the 9 of Wands. So the 9s in each of the elements. I pause for a moment and I ask Spirit to offer me guidance as far as what I have learned, where I have grown, and what are the messages for each of these cards. And then I journal, I dance, I leave that out, and I leave these cards out for some time, for the next couple of weeks and closing out the year. Now, if you're like, I don't want to leave these cards out because this is my one deck that I have, you can take a picture, you can write down the cards, and by all means, you don't need to leave these cards out. Let me share with you to give you an example. So I have the Hermit out, and I shuffled and I breathed into my tarot deck, and the Ace of Wands. So I have the Hermit as the tarot card of the year, and the biggest lesson and ways that I'm growing from the energy of the Hermit is the Ace of Wands. I have the 9 of Swords, and I shuffled, and you know what card I got? It was the Hierophant. Oh my gosh, that's one of those cards that sometimes is like nails on the chalkboard for me. 9 of Cups. Ooh, lo and behold, I got the 10 of Cups. That's the card for next year, and the 10s. Ooh, I loved that. 9 of Pentacles, I got the Fool card. Interesting. And the 9 of Wands, I got the 4 of Swords. So for me, at the very first glance, what this year has offered is ways on which that I may begin on a new path of sharing wisdom, sharing my passion, my fire, being able to be at peace from the past, the ending of a cycle that's been hard, and just celebration. Good stuff. This symbolizes new beginnings. And for me, when I see this, when I see the cards laid out like this, for me, it's a message of being able to step into another element of my power and my passion and sharing it with others. And that Nine of Wands, with having the Four of Swords, right beneath it. It's a message to me that to not overthink and to not have to push so hard and be of a stance of survival, of, I got to do this. It's releasing that FOMO, and also meditating and praying and allowing through rest and through peace and through more of a slow, passive action instead of forcing, the ideas and the clarity will come. So, my love, I invite you to look at your deck that way, to take out the Hermit and the nines of each of the elements and shuffle and see what cards come up. With that Nine of Swords and the Hierophant. Ooh, that was very interesting. And I think that I've reflected so much, and this has been such a year where I really wish I would have given myself so much more grace. I preach that for other folks, and I think we do this to ourselves, right? We're sometimes greater at giving advice than receiving our own advice, and stop overthinking things and really being allowed to step into roll my next step, I should say, or the next way or next chapter. And the Hierophant being that, what are the ways that I'm being called to be a teacher, to be a mentor, and to stop overthinking and overanalyzing and trying to figure anything out. Instead, just open and take action and do it regardless if I feel like I'm making a mistake or not, and et cetera, et cetera. So, my love, that's what I wanted to share with you. Just a way that you can be in relationship with your tarot for this year, the reflections of closing up this year. And I thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to this upcoming year. The changes that will be in effect are the Cafecito and Tarot Podcast will continue. It's going to be a monthly / bi-monthly platform. In these times that, in these last couple of years, I've done a lot of reflection and just even looking from when I started doing this in 2014, and my first pop-up, when pop-ups weren't really that, we're just getting started in the Seattle area, was at this tavern called the Tractor Tavern in Ballard, and it's a neighborhood in Seattle, Washington. And that was my first pop-up, and I absolutely loved it, and started doing pop-ups ever since. And then I started podcasting just for fun, and I did a lot more of the tarot scopes, and I would do tarot meditations around the tarot for the new moon and full moon, and I'm being called to go back to that. And so this is going to be the platform where I'll be doing that work, where I'll be offering that those reflections in that manner. Now, the Daily Tarot Brew is going to exist, and it's going to continue, but it's going to have its home of its own. So more on that to be continued. I want to thank you for being here. If you've been part of the Tarot Brew crew for some time, mad love for you, or mad love to you and for you, and for tuning in. I'm really looking forward to being of service in new ways, and with this renewed energy of this year, from this Hermit year, and tapping back in. I'm looking forward to tap back in. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I'll be back in the next couple weeks with the final episode of 2025. And that is going to be a meditation, guided meditation, a reflection on the cards for the upcoming year. And whatever else kind of is called to come out. So with that said, I raise my cafecito to you, and look forward to connecting with you. You can find me on the socials. I'm at the Daily Tarot Brew on Instagram. I'm hardly on there that much, but I'm going to be on there. You can still send me a message, and I'll get it at some point in time. Peace, love, and everything in between. Bye-bye.